look at the musculature on this guy. This is a hoss. This is the definition of a hoss. Just look at those triceps. What are you doing, homie? This guy's pretty sweaty. Surrounded by these fellas. It's you. Okay, you know, like. What's up, everybody? We got another good video here today. It's going to be a little different than what I usually upload. We got another freediving video. So I'm taking it back all the way to Caitlin and I's honeymoon, which wasn't that long ago. But we went to the Virgin Islands and we did some awesome freediving there. And we wanted to scuba dive, but Caitlin ended up getting COVID. So unfortunately, we had to freedive instead of scuba diving, because if you don't know, COVID and really any cold or flu or anything like that will make it where you can't equalize when you get down to depth, and that really creates a problem if you're scuba diving. But we were able to do some free diving and snorkeling, so that's what we did here. And we were the only two free divers on this little tour, so we were the only ones going down there at the same depths as the scuba divers without a scuba tank. We just our snorkels and our lungs, so that was pretty cool. But unfortunately, Caitlin also, because she had COVID, she didn't have much breath hold capacity, so it was really hard for her to get down there. And again, the equalizing was an issue, so unfortunately she didn't get to go as deep as she could have, but she still enjoyed it, and we got to do some good dives. But right here, I was just doing my first drop of the day, and I was just kind of getting a feel for it, because this is pretty deep. Most of these dives are about, I don't know, 30 to 40, 50 feet. And where I'm at in Florida, usually the springs and stuff that I dive are only about 30, rivers, can be 40 or so feet deep. So if I go on the beach, sometimes on the Gulf side, there's some deeper stuff that I'll dive, but really most of it's more shallow than a lot of this was. So this was the first structure that we dove, though. This is a shipwreck. The ship was supposedly hauling some nefarious goods. I know there's a lot of slave trading that went on back in the day. The tour guide was explaining this, but every one of the Virgin Islands has a Buck Island off the coast of it, and it's called Buck Island because that's where they would send all the male slaves. So it's pretty tragic, but that's the history of this area, and therefore you got a lot of shipwrecks and some neat history. But yeah, every one of those islands has a Buck Island. So there, Caitlin just made another dive, and it was a pretty good one, even though she didn't have a great breath hold capacity because of COVID. Right here, I kind of snuck up on these divers, and they looked kind of surprised. This one lady turned around and took a picture of me. It's kind of funny. Sometimes they look kind of surprised when they see someone down there without scuba gear at that depth. Because right here is probably about 50 feet. Can't really remember. I didn't have a dive watch or anything, but if I'd guess, I'd say it was around 50-ish feet. And I also didn't have like free diving fins or anything. I'm just basically using the same kind of fins those scuba divers are wearing right there. So I considered a lot of these dives to be pretty good, even though these right here not terribly deep for by freediving standards, because I have some better fins now. These weren't that great. There's Caitlin making another dive, coming back up to the surface. So she was able to push herself to get down there a few times, even though COVID was making her lungs in a less than ideal state, and it was a little bit harder for her to equalize. One thing I thought was pretty cool about this landscape is that there's a very vibrant, bustling reef down there, and you can't even really see it. It looks kind of bare until you start diving down, and once you get closer, it kind of takes shape. Right here was pretty much just a grassy bottom, but I was going to check out this plaque, and I can't remember what this plaque was for. I know it was important, and the tour guide explained what it was for, who it was for. It looks like it says, does it say Hillets? And I can't remember who that was, unfortunately. I know it was important, but I wasn't really focused on that. I was focused on looking at all the wildlife and everything, and I kind of just let it slip my mind. But if you look up that name, you'll probably find the history on that. But here's kind of what I was talking about. I was getting ready to make another dive here, and the bottom of the sea floor there looks pretty nondescript. It's kind of bare. It looks bare. It looks like it's just some grass or maybe some mud down there. But as you dive down and you get closer, you'll see here, the closer you get to that bottom, the more it takes shape, and you start seeing different corals and all the different formations and fish, and you start seeing this just full of life. Now, a lot of this doesn't look as vibrant as it actually would. Of course, as you get down that deep, the reason the water looks blue is because blue is the only wavelength of light that's making it down that far, which is why some of these purple corals are really popping. A few different color corals really show up at that depth, but unfortunately, because it's so far down and you only get the blue wavelengths of light, you're not seeing all the reds and stuff like that. A lot of that's really muted. I did a little bit of editing on this video to try to make those colors pop a little better, but you can only do so much in post. You know, it's just part of diving down that deep. You're gonna lose some of the colors. Either way, this place is still beautiful. And as you can see here, we got some yellowtail snapper that came in, and I was really wishing I had a spear gun at this point, because those guys taste really good, and would have loved to get in on that. But either way, it was really cool watching them. They were pretty friendly. I guess because nobody really spearfishes there, they were coming right up to us, and I was doing some grunting, and I was able to call some of them in, which was pretty cool. Right here, making another dive. I'll probably just be quiet and let you guys enjoy this footage. It was a really beautiful part of the reef, and this is where we really started seeing some cool stuff. As you can see, this is one of the longer dives that I did, and I was really trying to push myself here and see how long I could stay under. I did a lot of pushing my limits on this little trip. I actually made a personal record dive a little later in the video, which you'll see, and because of that, I'm kind of glad that we didn't scuba dive. I know it was because, you know, the whole COVID situation. But in a way, it was kind of nice because I got to push myself in my freediving, and I enjoy the sport of freediving, so it was a lot of fun. Right here, I noticed there was a bunch of sand getting kicked up on the bottom there, if you guys can see that at the top of the screen. So I decided to go down there and check it out, and the cool thing was, we got to see this beautiful stingray. And you can see him right there as I came around the coral. This guy was digging for food, trying to dig it up out of the ground and eat it. Probably little shellfish and things like that, mollusks. And it was kind of hard to tell just how big he was from the surface, but this was a massive stingray. And as I got a little closer, I noticed he was completely missing most of his tail, so he doesn't have a barb. Don't have to worry about this guy stabbing me or anything if you get scared, so I got a little bit closer, and it's kind of hard to tell the scale of just how big that thing was, but that was a huge, huge stingray. Super cool to see. Got some more of those yellowtail right there. and I decided to make another drop to look at some of the coral, because there were some really neat formations right here you're about to see. There was a really neat formation in front of me, and it kind of made like a little cave, so I went to check it out. As I followed this little trough here in the bottom, I turned around and looked, and sure enough, our stingray friend came back around, and he was actually coming toward me. Possibly because he was curious, or possibly just because he was, you know, following that trough and doing some foraging. But I gave him another visit because he came over to see me, so cool to see him again. There's some really colorful coral in this area. A lot of this is, there's a sea anemone right there. A lot of this is fire coral, which actually stings you if you touch it, hence the name. And some of this is elkhorn coral and pronghorn coral. Really beautiful stuff. Some of these formations are really stuff that's seen, you know, pretty rarely in most of the ocean. There's a porcupine fish right here hiding in this cave. Pretty neat. He didn't want to be seen. So this is actually the personal record that I made. This is a 72-foot dive in one breath. And the tour guide actually put me up to this. He challenged me to do it because he'd been down there on scuba. And he told me right where that sandy spot is, about 72 feet. So he wanted to see if I could make it down there. And first try, I got it. I know this isn't terribly impressive as far as free diving goes, because there's plenty of people out there that can go down well over 100 feet. And, you know, I'm pretty new to the sport of freediving, so I know it's not the most impressive thing in the world, but for me, this is a big mile marker, and I can't wait to try to go even deeper, seeing that I got that so easily. You can see just how small Caitlin was up on the surface there before I came back up, so it was pretty cool. A whole different experience going down that deep. Yeah, it's pretty neat when you get down to this level, when you get around 50, 60 feet, and your mask starts just like sucking into your face, and it feels like it's crushing your eyeballs because of the pressure. But that's why it's important to be able to equalize. If you can't equalize, then you shouldn't be doing it, because you're really going to have a headache, and there's a good possibility you could rupture an eardrum. But if you know how to equalize right, then you don't have to worry about that. And so long as you don't have a cold or COVID, then you should be good. Right here, I decided to go down and try to mess with these divers, and I'm pretty sure they saw me at one point, but really it was hard to get their attention because they were so focused on where they were going and what they were looking at. But they were part of the same tour group that we were. They were just scuba diving instead of snorkeling, so I kept going down there and trying to mess with them and get their attention. But again, this is another really deep spot. This is probably about, I don't know, 60 something feet at that point, because it was pretty close to that 72-foot drop. Some of these videos, when I'm coming up to the surface, you can hear, like in that last clip there, I don't know if you heard it, but I made kind of a sound, and what that is my diaphragm contracting. And you start getting those contractions when you're heading up to the surface pretty quickly, especially if you've been down there a minute. Usually that happens at the end of the dive. And what that is just your body demanding that it gets air. It's after you've held your breath a certain amount of time, you'll start getting those contractions because your body's trying to breathe essentially without any new oxygen yet, because it knows it's time. And you know, it's a natural thing if you're free diving, but it's not very comfortable, and it's one of those things you got to learn to deal with when you're learning to free dive. But you got to listen to your body too, because if you completely ignore that and you just stay down there, then that's when you pass out. So kind of interesting, but that's what that's about. Right here we got in some really colorful coral. You're gonna see in a minute I show some fan coral, and some of this fan coral, you'll notice that it's got some like really purple vibrant blotches on it, and other than that making it really pretty, what those purple blotches are actually something that keeps the coral safe. You can see that's got a little bit of it on it right there, but in a minute you're going to see some different fan corals that's got even more purple on it. And what that is the coral fighting off an attacker. So there's these little cowrie shells, or cowrie mollusk. If you've ever seen you've probably seen a cowrie shell at like a souvenir shell shop or something. But they're really pretty shells, but they come from this little mollusk that will climb onto that coral and eat it. So these fan corals actually produce a purple substance that you'll see staining some of them, and that purple is a toxin that helps fight off the little mollusk that attack them. Pretty neat. See, we got Caitlin right here meditating among the sargassum. You know, even though we had the COVID situation and we, couldn't do everything we wanted, we still made the best of it, made the most of it, and I think we both had a pretty great time, all in all. But this was getting toward the end of our trip, or the end of our outing, I should say. We were looking at some really neat coral. A lot of this is fire coral, which, like I said, actually can burn you or sting you if you get too close and touch it. Got Caitlin making a little dive, checking out some coral. There's some really neat stuff in this area. There's so much of the ocean where you just can't find coral like this anymore. The reefs aren't nearly this healthy, and there's actually a different part of the trip where we saw some even healthier reefs than this, but still, this is about as good as you can get when it comes to reefs these days. It's unfortunate, but a lot of them are dying out, and whether that's because, people not respecting them and walking all over them and not doing ethical diving practices, or climate change, or a menagerie of other things all contribute to it. But it was good to see these healthy coral reefs, and it was a great day all in all. But yeah, guys, that's the end of the video. Appreciate you guys watching, and I hope you tune in for the next one. It's been a little bit of time since I filmed this, so I'm glad to finally get it out there. And now me and Caitlin have a baby on the way, so life is rapidly changing for us, but soon that little guy will be around, and you better believe I'm going to take him herping with me as soon as he's old enough. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and there's going to be more videos in the future. Just going to be kind of busy in the near future. But anyways, guys, I will see you on the next one. I hope you enjoyed. Once again, leave a like and a comment if you'd like to, and if you enjoyed this content, subscribe. I post a lot of herping and freediving videos, so I'll see you guys on the next one.